Let me tell you a war story that feels like a meme until you realize it happened to real people. Spring 1944. Japan is losing momentum, so one general shrugs and says, "Fine, we'll just walk into India from Burma somehow." The plan is called Yugo, Imphal, and Kohima, two dots on a map that quickly turn into a human meat grinder. And the twist? Many soldiers simply die without meeting the enemy. Starvation, disease, exhaustion, endless rain, and bottomless mud instead. So today we're not doing battle highlights, we're tracing how a whole campaign collapses from the inside, day by day. I even brought dry crackers because in this story, logistics is the real main character, more than any general speech. Zoom out, Burma Front, 1944. Japan wants to stop the Allies and flip the chessboard, fast before it's too late. If they take Imphal, they threaten Allied supply routes and dream of political shockwaves in India, like a domino effect. But the terrain is a nightmare. Jungle ridges, narrow tracks, steep slopes, angry rivers, and monsoon clouds already gathering overhead. British Indian forces have what Japan fears most: air power and a habit of flying supplies exactly where roads collapse. Still, the 15th Army commander Renya Mutaguchi is convinced the impossible is just mindset. Like hunger can be argued away. Ha! You know that friend who always says, "Trust me, bro?" Now imagine him planning a continental invasion with your life. His plan depends on speed. Strike fast, grab supplies, and keep moving before reality catches up and bites hard. That's the first red flag. In jungle warfare, reality catches you immediately. Distance, weather, and your stomach don't negotiate ever. Mutaguchi isn't alone. There's pride, faction politics, and old grudges inside the officer corps, pushing the plan forward anyway. The plan gets approved through headquarters culture, big visions, vague numbers, and scary confidence. Like math is optional in war. A famous detail says Hideki Tojo gave final approval after quick questions, while taking a bath, steam rising around him. That's not the whole truth of the war, but it captures the vibe. Decisions detached from mud and blood completely. On paper, arrows look clean. In reality, each arrow is a sweating body hauling rice through hills, under fire. Mutaguchi expects captured Allied depots to feed his men. If not, he shrugs and says they'll improvise somehow, out there. But the Allies learned in Burma: don't leave neat depots. Burn it, fly it out, or defend it hard. So the Japanese gamble isn't just bold. It depends on the enemy making mistakes, on schedule, every single time. Meanwhile, frontline soldiers don't see strategy debates. They see rations shrinking, boots failing, and another ridge ahead tonight again. Those rations are often only weeks' worth. For an operation that drags into months and eats men alive, slowly, when logistics is hand-waved, the bill doesn't arrive someday. It arrives tomorrow morning, right inside your body first, immediately. Now we hit the core. Mutaguchi's 3 logistics ideas sound funny until you picture the funerals and the silence afterward. Idea 1. We'll eat from the enemy's table. Capture supplies, live off looted food, and keep marching forward anyway. In earlier campaigns, light forces sometimes survived by moving fast and feeding off captured stockpiles along the way, briefly. But by 1944, the Allies defend depots, evacuate fast, and resupply by air, even under constant pressure, relentlessly today. Idea 2 gets nicknamed the Genghis Khan method. Drive herds of cattle as transport, then as meat later somehow. It sounds clever in a meeting room. On jungle ridgelines, it becomes slow, loud, and easy to spot from above. Animals drown in rivers, fall off slopes, or collapse from hunger long before they ever feed hungry soldiers at all. And when the herd slows, everything slows. Ammo, medicine, artillery, and even your chance to retreat alive later, safely. Idea 3 is the darkest. When food runs out, commanders preach endurance as if willpower were calories today somehow. Later, men scavenge roots, grass, and anything edible, hoping it won't kill them faster than hunger does tonight too. Meanwhile, Allied aircraft drop supplies like clockwork: food, ammo, medicine, and a daily reminder of who owns the sky. Some Japanese soldiers grab drifting parachute bundles and joke they're Churchill rations, laughing through bitterness and shame, softly there. Think about that irony. The enemy feeds you by accident because your own system can't feed you on purpose. Yes, here's the real lesson. Logistics isn't boring paperwork. It decides whether your rifle is useful or dead weight daily. Now the operation begins. March 1944. Boots step into Burma's hills and the jungle swallows the sound completely, whole. Imagine the smell: wet soil, rotting leaves, sweat trapped under uniforms, and insects buzzing like an electric wire nonstop. The route isn't a road, it's a scraped track that turns into a brown river when the rains hit. Monsoon season turns hills into sliding walls. One wrong step and you drop, pack and rifle tumbling after you. Soldiers haul ammo, rice, and mortars, then still get told they're not trying hard enough by men behind desks. Disease joins the battle: malaria, dysentery, foot rot. Your body becomes another front line you can't abandon ever, alone. The timetable is brutal: huge distances, rough terrain, and an expectation to arrive before the Allies react at all. But the Allies react early, moving reserves, digging defenses, and preparing airfields so Imphal can breathe under siege longer. Imphal isn't just a town, it's a hub of airstrips and roads built to be supplied even when surrounded. Japanese doctrine loves encirclement, but encirclement fails when the ring can't stop airplanes from landing or dropping crates nonstop. Every day the Japanese push forward, their supply line stretches thinner, like a rubber band about to snap suddenly. They seize positions, sure, but the invisible cost skyrockets. Calories burned, boots destroyed, men collapsing quietly in ditches daily. Then comes Kohima, north of Imphal, where the road is everything and a narrow ridge becomes a fortress overnight. If Kohima falls, Imphal relief is cut, so both sides pour men into a brutal strip of soaked ground. Picture close combat in rain and fog: bayonets, grenades, screams, and the constant buzz of flies over fresh wounds. In one sector, the front lines are separated by basically the width of a tennis court. Close enough to hear whispers and curses. That's not a metaphor, that's the actual distance between life and death for weeks at a time in rain and fog. Meanwhile at Imphal, the defenders hold boxes, keeping runways alive under shell fire because air supply is their superpower here. Transport planes keep landing or dropping supplies: food, ammo, medicine, turning the sky into a lifeline you can almost touch. Japanese attacks hit hard, but each assault burns irreplaceable energy, and energy is the real currency in this campaign. The deeper they go, the less they can evacuate wounded. Men lie under trees, hearing rain, fading out quietly. Some units raid airfields like Palel, hoping to cut the artery. It's desperate work, paid for in blood and fatigue. Even when Japanese troops seize a dump, it's often emptied or booby-trapped. The enemy's table is bare again, always. Command tension explodes. Divisional leaders see starvation coming, but headquarters keep saying, push, like hunger is negotiable somehow, daily. At Kohima, General Kotoku Sato leads the 31st Division and watches his men shrink into shadows each week silently. He thinks the plan is madness, not heroic madness, but administrative madness, where paperwork kills more men than bullets. Sato warns supply is failing, headquarters warns obedience is failing. Both sides talk like pride is the mission itself. In that moment, the war inside the Japanese army becomes clearer than the war against the Allies outside, painfully. British and Indian relief forces push in. The ridge fight becomes a slow squeeze, not a clean cinematic breakthrough. Japan can't replace losses, can't feed survivors, and can't silence the sky that keeps resupplying Imphal every single day. By May, Yugo is bleeding out, yet orders still talk like victory is one more push away, somehow tomorrow. Sato finally makes the taboo move. He disobeys orders and retreats, trying to save what's left of his division. He fires back at threats. Do what you please, I'll bring you down with me. That's Civil War language, openly. Once one formation stops obeying, the whole machine shakes. Mutaguchi's control becomes theoretical, not real power anymore, at all. Mutaguchi tries to restart attacks anyway. Units refuse or simply can't. Too sick, too hungry, too exhausted to move. The Allies aren't only fighting with guns, they fight with calendars, runways, and supply tonnage delivered through storms daily. When you can't match that, bravery turns into waste, like burning your house down just to prove you're warm. By early July, the offensive ends, not with a grand retreat, more like a starving crowd stumbling back into Burma. Many casualties come from starvation, disease, and exhaustion during retreat. Modern war's quiet killers that don't need bullets at all. They abandon guns, animals, and vehicles, anything that can't move. The jungle collects trophies without firing a shot once. This is why the disaster legend sticks. Thousands die on the road, not in some heroic last stand scene. Pia, retreat routes become corridors of bodies. Survivors remember the stench, sweet, rotten, and so strong, it rewrites memory forever. The monsoon doesn't stop. Rain pounds wounds, turns bandages to sludge, and turns feet into raw meat with every step. Here's the cruel math. Air supply kept Imphal alive, and lack of supply killed the attackers from the inside. Allied forces suffer too, but their system can replace losses, treat wounded, and keep units coherent under pressure daily. Afterward, commanders are removed, reputations repainted, and the argument over blame starts, because someone must carry the shame home. Mutaguchi and Sato's feud lasts years. Mutaguchi even attacks Sato in writing at Sato's own funeral bitterly, later openly. That's what makes me furious. A system that burns men as fuel, then argues about whose match was wrong. Imphal Kohima becomes a turning point in Burma. Japan loses an army's worth of strength, it cannot rebuild quickly again. The eat from the enemy dream collapses because the enemy controls the sky, the timetable, and the escape routes. In the end, the jungle didn't just resist invasion, it exposed what happens when planning ignores logistics completely. Always. If you want one lesson, courage can't replace calories, medicine, roads, and honest reports delivered on time, period, ever. Another lesson is darker. Bureaucracies love optimism because optimism delays accountability, until bodies appear and silence breaks wide open. That bath approval anecdote endures because it symbolizes distance between decision makers and the mud they command from far away still. And the tennis court front line shows the opposite. Soldiers pressed so close that breathing space became strategy, not comfort. Imphal isn't just a battle, it's a warning label. Ignore logistics and your army becomes its own enemy, fast. So, after hearing this, what do you think? Was the tragedy inevitable, or was it chosen by leadership step by step?